Hello, everyone. We are going to start our very first lecture, which is Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology. What is the difference, at the end of today's lecture? What I want you to take is the difference between anatomy and physiology. And also there is some relationship between anatomy and physiology subjects. So anatomy is to do with the structures of the organs and structure of the human body. And physiology is more concerned with study of the functions of the organs of the human body. So there will be some overlap because if we talk about the kidney anatomy, to some extent, we will be talking about the functions of the kidneys, which is some basic physiological function of the kidneys, but we'll be more detailing about where the kidney is, how it is made, what structures constitute the kidneys. But in your physiology lecture, you will be studying more about how the urine is made, how the fluids and electrolytes are reabsorbed from the human body urine. So that will be the difference. The anatomy is the study of the structure and physiology is study of the function. So let's start with the anatomy. So it starts from the very ancient stage. This is the dissection of the cadaver in 15th century painting. Look at that, the way they try to study the human body. And once we are getting into the anatomy field, or especially into the medical field, I want you to know this person. He is Hippocrates. He is a Greek origin. So he will be regarded as father of the medicine, and ancient Greek, ancient Italian, or even the ancient Egyptian. They were the pioneers when it comes to the anatomy and anatomic dissections. Of course, anatomy, we have two portions, like one is gross anatomy and another thing is microscopic anatomy. Let's say if we are looking at the brain tissue, a brain substance, the brain itself, it is something we can see with our naked eye, and that is the gross anatomy. Let's say if we want to look at neurons, a neuron is the basic functional unit of the nervous system. And if we want to look at the neuron, we have to use a microscope, just take a piece of brain tissue, prepare it, put it on the microscope and look at it. And therefore, this becomes the microscopic anatomy. Some anatomists, we want to describe anatomy as systemic. Let's say, for example, if we do cardiovascular system, cardio means heart, and vascular means blood vessel system, that will make a systemic anatomy. But for some, if we are going to dissect through the chest wall and the thoracic region, in our thorax, in our chest, we have heart and lungs. That means if we are doing regional anatomy for the thorax, we will be studying about the heart and lungs. So that in that way, we can say, hey, systemic anatomy, and oh, okay, regional anatomy. Whether with the vivid eye, we can see gross anatomy, or using the microscope, we will see microscopic anatomy. Physiology, as we said before, it's more concerned with the study of the function, which means study of the chemistries, physics, and when they are trying to maintain the body's homeostasis. Homeostasis means as the very natural status. Some study will specialize into nervous system as neurophysiology. Some studies will specialize into the muscle system as musculo or skeletal bone, musculoskeletal physiology, and so on, renal kidney physiology. So it is more to do with the functions and the way electrolyte fluids, oxygen, what is happening at the tissue level, and how are they maintaining the homeostasis, normal internal environment of the human body. That is physiology. So this diagram represents the level of organization. Like human beings, of course, we are all made of cells. The cells are composed of, the basic of the human body is, of course, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and many other things. And finally, we get a cell, and cell combination makes tissue, and tissue, similar tissues together makes an organ. Let's say cardiac muscle tissue will make a heart. The tissue of these muscles will make a urinary bladder, and combination of kidney, bladder, and the passage of urine, urethra, which will contribute the urinary system. And of course, many systems in our body will combine together to become a human being. So if you look at these diagrams, the integumentary system, which is, of course, with the skin, the nails, and the hair, that makes the integumentary system. Skeletal system means the bones in our body. Of course, it's also include the cartilage and joints, so that will be the skeletal system. Muscular system, which move the bones and joints, and it also helps to maintain the body temperature, all the muscles in our body. And nervous system include the brain and the spinal cord and all the peripheral nerves coming out from the spinal cord and the brain. Endocrine system, which is the hormone secretion system. And cardiovascular system, cardio means heart, vascular means blood vessel, all the heart and blood vessels in our body, study all the blood vessels. And lymphatic system, all the lymphatics, which carries the excessive fluid, which cannot be carried by the veins. They will all take it back to the heart. That is the lymphatic system. And respiratory system, like our breathing system. Digestive system, which is also called gastrointestinal tract. Start from eating, chewing, swallowing, stomach, intestine, digestion, absorption, and excretory. And urinary system, which includes the kidneys, ureter, which is the tubes connecting the kidneys to the bladder so that the urine, which is made in the kidneys, can flow to the bladder, which is the urinary system, and reproductive system in the male, reproductive system in the female. So all these systems in combination, we have a human being. So a human being is a multi-billion cellular living organism. How many cells do we have in our body? Of course, we got 30 to 40 trillions of cells. It depends on which study you look at. And most of the cells in our body comes from the red blood cell, which is called erythrocyte. Muscle cells contribute small amount, neurons contribute small amount, the fat adipose tissue contributes small amount. So which means in total of the trillion of cells, the erythrocyte is the most abundant cell in our body. And now let's move to some anatomical terms and anatomical position. I believe you all remember these two gentlemen, Richard Nixon and the Elvis Presley. They are shaking hands with their right hand. And the way we see is everything we see, the right side is the right side. So in this diagram, this is the right side and this is the left side. So I want you to take that. That's one of the important anatomical term and anatomical position. In anatomical position, the person is standing straight with the palms facing forward, and the thumbs are farther away from the center of the body when you compare to the little fingers. So which means the thumb is lateral and the little finger is medial, because medial means closer to the center of the body, lateral means farther away from the body. The anterior front surface is called anterior or ventral. And at the same time, when it comes to the limbs, the closer to the origin of the limb, it is proximal, the farther away, it is distal. And therefore, the knee joint is proximal to the ankle, and ankle joint is distal to the knee joint. Knee joint is distal to the hip joint, and hip joint is proximal to the knee joint. And now if you look at this diagram, the outermost layer, which we call skin, actually it is the epidermis, E-P-I-D-E-R-M-I-S, epidermis layer. The outermost layer, and if you go through that, we get to the dermis layer. Underneath the dermis, we call hypodermis layer. And then deep fascia, and finally we go to the muscle. So what I'm trying to say is the skin is superficial to the dermis, dermis is superficial to the hypodermis, hypodermis is superficial to the deep fascia, and deep fascia is superficial to the muscle. To make it clear, skin is superficial to the muscle. Superficial means closer to the external environment. And now we come to the regional term for skeleton. So our skull, which we call the cranium, and the spine in the center, together with the ribs which come out from the spine, this is in the axial skeleton. So the rest, if it is not involved in the axial skeleton, they will be called appendicular skeleton. So now I want you to remember the terminology axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton. I want you to have a little look at this table, and I want you to remember these, because we will be using these terminologies again and again, again and again, again and again. This is a cell. As we all know, a cell has a boundary which is called cell membrane or plasma membrane. And inside the cell, the contents, the cytoplasm and the cytosol, we have the nucleus, nucleolus, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, mitochondria. And this is a very typical cell in a human being. Who start talking about cells? This is a gentleman from the English Isle on the west of the main English eyes from Isle of Wight, and he studied the cork of let's say of a wine bottle, and if you look carefully, there are little small pockets of area, and the way he termed small little rooms. In Latin, it is called cellula. And the terminology cells come from the cellula. These are the gentlemen who start talking about the plants, animals are made of multiple cells, which is called multicellular organisms. And now we have to talk about metabolism. And when we talk about metabolism, there are a few things which we should remember from our physics and thermodynamics. 3 laws. The first law of thermodynamics is energy conservation, which means the energy is conserved and it changes in the form, but it cannot be created, it cannot be destroyed. The second law of thermodynamics is irreversibility of the natural process. That's to make it very short. And third law of thermodynamics is at 0 temperature, the system must be in the state with the minimum thermal energy. Okay. So this is for your general knowledge about thermodynamics. We'll be talking more about the first law of thermodynamics, which is the energy conservation. So in metabolism, we have 2, anabolism and catabolism. Catabolism is a breakdown and anabolism is a build up. So that's the short term. So if you look at that, metabolism, anabolism is the reaction of building reactions. And to build, you need energy. And catabolism is a breaking down process where you get the energy. So let's say if you take food, there will be catabolic process, which means that energy is released and you are going to use that energy in your body. And anabolism, if you want to store like glucose in your body, you are going to use energy to store this. So that's the basic of metabolism, which include anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism is building up, which requires energy. Catabolism is breaking down, which release energy. These are the functions of the human life, which is responsiveness, movement, development, growth, and reproduction. The requirements, basic requirements for human life: oxygen, nutrition, very well-controlled temperature environment, and very well-controlled atmospheric pressure environment. That is what we need to survive as a human being. All right, guys. I will see you in the lab section in this afternoon.